future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
On New England Legends, we explore the mysteries that make New England special. From strange monsters, unique creatures, to haunted locations like this one.
We believe he still stays here. He takes care of the light for us. He walks the tower at night.
Here's what we do know about this tower. It's the oldest standing structure in the state of Rhode Island.
If you stand here every year on the winter solstice, right through this little space, you'll see the sun. And it happens like clockwork every year.
Darkness attracts darkness. Sometimes, what lies inside a haunted building is only what you bring in with you.
And I had my flashlight and I flashed it towards the wall and it looked like the wall was vibrating.
I literally thought we were dead. And it was only a second later before we realized that not only had nothing fallen down, there was no residue, there was no dust, there was nothing. It was just a phantom.
What's it like? What's that moment like when you go from skeptic to believer all in an instant?
I walked in one way, I walked out a completely different person.
Don't miss the next New England Legends.
Welcome to another broadcast of Honor with Tony Sweet, Truth Be Told, where we believe and experience becomes the truth. Tonight's a great opportunity for all of us to dive into the world of paranormal. I'm your host, Tony Sweet, and I'm here with my co-host, Will Benally, famed lifestyle expert, Damona Hoffman, and world-renowned psychic, Eddie Connor.
Thank you for supporting our sponsors, Conscious Life Expo, by going to consciouslifeexpo.com to get your tickets for their February 2015 event.
And take your mind on a literary journey by traveling over to adventuresunlimitedpress.com, where you can purchase many of the books from our famed experts featured right here on Truth Be Told. I'm your co-host, Eddie Connor, and our guest expert is an author, adventurer, and one of the most visible paranormal researchers in media today, Mr. Jeff Belanger. He's the founder of the New Legend Tripping Movement and is the Emmy-nominated host, writer, and producer of the New England Legends series, which debuted on PBS last October.
I'm Damona Hoffman. Today, we'll explore the mystery and wonders of the other side and ask what keeps spirits on this planet and why are we so fascinated by them.
And let's not forget Jeff's books, Haunted New England Calendar.
Who's haunted the White House?
The President's Mansion and the ghosts who live there, and many more.
All right, let's welcome our first guest, Jeff Belanger.
Thank you.
Yes, Jeff is here, everybody. Now, calm down. Don't get crazy on us. Welcome, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm great. Thank you guys for having me, and happy almost Halloween.
I know. I can't believe it. This year has gone so fast. Well, we're so excited. Eddie and actually Whale couldn't make it, but Damona Hoffman is here, and we are excited because this is one of our time of year that we really love. This is well, all year around we're all about spirits and ghosts and paranormal, but this is one of those times of year that we can freely just go. Join the world.
Let your freak flag
yes,
fly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I know you grew up on the East Coast in New England, and I read where you started your kind of journey because there was many people in your town that always talked about having ghosts in their home. And but I want to, most of us have seen, well, not most of us, some of us have seen ghosts, but it doesn't get us on that journey into ghost hunting. So how did it get started as a ghost hunter for you?
I grew up in a old New England town with plenty of friends who had haunted houses, but I didn't see one. Not until I was an adult. That would come
Really?
years later, yeah. But I was intrigued by the subject, and I really wanted to be a writer. And I started writing for newspapers and magazines. And around October, you go looking for ghostly features.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So really, that got me hooked. I also grew up in the town next to Ed and Lorraine Warren. So if you've seen the movie The Conjuring or Annabelle.
Oh, yes.
Oh, child.
So, you know what's funny? The movie Annabelle that just came out, I knew the real Annabelle, who doesn't look anything like that.
She got Hollywoodized.
Yeah, right.
The real Annabelle's a Raggedy Ann doll, the same exact one my sister had growing up, which was really more freaky if you think about it.
It is
is
because
kinda
they're
freaky.
so universal looking. You don't expect it to like pop up on your bed and go, "Your mother sucks in hell."
What was that, Eddie? No,
You heard me.
Yeah, so that inspired you, but when I am curious, when you said you saw your first ghost as an adult, when was that?
2003. I had already been writing about ghosts. I started ghostvillage.com in 1999. I'd been, actively pursuing them for years, but I always took this journalistic approach. I said, I'd get to the point where I say, I believe that you believe. I wasn't there. I can't confirm it, but I'm not going to call you a liar. So I took that approach. But then in 2003, I was in the city of Paris, France, and I was down below in the catacombs, and all alone, surrounded by 6 million human skeletons. And I saw a shadow the size of a man move from the right side to the left and go back again in this long, narrow tunnel. And I just froze. And my brain went through everything it could possibly be. And ghost is way down on the list for me. It's not even in the top 10,
Right.
And eventually I ran out of words, and I went, okay, if that's not a ghost, then I have no other word for what it is that I just experienced. And it changes you, it changes you over the course of hours and days and weeks and months and years as it sinks in, and you say, all right, these aren't just stories. There's something more to it all. Now what do I do? And I've been looking even more actively ever since.
So you said in 2003, but what was your give us that first ghost hunt that you purposely went out to seek to find a ghost? What was that first ghost hunt?
It was before 2003.
Oh, really?
It was, oh, sure, yeah. I mean, I would go out with paranormal research groups, and I would go through the house, and I'd see the gear go off here and there, and people would get impressions and feelings. I can't relate to that at all. I'm not psychic or sensitive. In fact, I'm what they call insensitive. You can absolutely any of my ex-girlfriends.
Yeah.
Oh.
Didn't bring me flowers or even make me dinner. Yeah.
No. The only ring I left was the one around the tub,
Wow.
Yeah. And the woman in the room, yeah, whatever.
Right.
Clean it up.
Right.
So anyway, no, I'd go out with groups, and I'd watch, and I thought it was very interesting. I mean, it really was. I realized there was a big social aspect to it. These are people getting out on a Saturday night, and this is what they chose to do, and I thought that was kind of cool. But I didn't really fully understand it. To me, even the gear didn't make a lot of sense back then. And I appreciate people that are trying to be scientifical, which is a real word since about 2 seconds ago.
Right.
I was believing you too. I was like,
Yeah.
scientifical.
I spell that with like a PSYTIF. Anyway, horribly phonetic. And I appreciate people trying to at least try to control the environment. But I always thought, all the people that have had a profound experience, you saw something, you heard something, you felt something. That's the game changer. Not, oh man, I got an EMF spike or a temperature fluctuation. So I never quite got the gear. And plus, to be perfectly honest, I'm not that smart. So, I'm a words guy. I'm a words and experiences guy, and it gets all sciencey and mathy and stuff, and you lose me. I want to walk around. I want to know the history. I want to breathe that in. I want to talk to the people that have seen them. It seems to me, and I've been saying this for a while now, that ghosts are kind of like the wind. I can't show you the wind. It's invisible. No one's ever seen it, but we've seen its effects. We've seen it blow trees and leaves around. We've felt it hit our face, so we can see what it does, even if we can't see the thing itself. And for sure, even before my experience in 2003, I saw what ghosts could do. I saw people rattled. I saw people who were shaken up and afraid to live in their house. I saw people who were so intrigued that they gave up all their weekends and lots of money and free time to go look into this subject. So I didn't doubt their existence. I just didn't know quite what they were. And I'm still working on that, by the way. But once you have that experience, then you start to form, really your own theories and ideas.
Do you think because you said you believe when people say that they see ghosts, but how many cases do you think are actual ghost experience then separate from just legends?
Oh, yeah, it's almost impossible to tell. Even today when someone tells me of their experience, I don't doubt them, but I don't necessarily believe them either. If I'm not there, all I can say is that's an interesting story, or I can see you're clearly shaken up by this, you're moved by it. It was a real event for you, no question about that. So I'm sure, I watched on those early ghost hunts. I remember watching someone walk by a curtain, and they just got close enough to flutter the curtain, and then someone else in the room screamed, "The curtain's moving. There's a ghost."
Right.
And even the person who did it said, "No, that was me. I just brushed against it. My fault. No big deal." And they said, "No, that wasn't you. That was a ghost." And I'm watching all this going, wow, no, he's right. It was him. It wasn't a ghost. But it didn't matter. The person wanted to believe so badly that they held on to whatever it is that they saw. And that's one of the things I was concerned about with paranormal investigation is that, if you go fishing every weekend and you catch nothing, you're going to start living for stuff like ripples in the water. And,
right.
Right. Eventually you have to give this thing up. So, but anyway, no, it's an intriguing thing. Legends themselves become a real living, breathing thing. And even when we talk about them, we want to become part of that story. We want to share in it, even if we're doubting, even if we're saying, it's all bunk, it can't be true, I've been to that location, I didn't see anything. You're still kind of writing your own chapter into that story.
And how many legends have you, I guess, went to seek to see if it was truth, and that you found that, yes, that I saw evidence that it's a true ghost experience, or the ones that you walked away and says, I didn't find proof? How many do you think that you can talk about?
1,237.
Perfect. There we go.
So let's start with number one.
Yeah.
No, I think that there's first of all, in any legend, if it's even being talked about, there's some nugget of truth. There's some ring of truth in there somewhere. Otherwise, it would never grow. If I were to tell you I was on, Hollywood Boulevard this morning and I saw Elvis and the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot dancing a jig together, right? That's a legend. It was born, and it's going to be dead on arrival because it's ludicrous, it's out of context, no one else will have the experience, it doesn't sound believable, and no one else is going to spread that tale. So that legend is just gone.
Right.
But, the ones that sound like there might be something to it, the little girl in the red dress on the second floor of that old inn, who died there all those years ago, and people still talk about seeing her, staff, guests, and so on. Those are the ones where you say, well, I want to know more. Now, I may go there, and the odds are I'm not going to see anything. I accept that. But, sometimes lightning does strike while you're watching.
True.
So
this is true.
So at the same time, you can't, just because you go there for a couple hours one night, you can't write off a legend. The legend is always real. The legend becomes this real thing, this collective thing that we all own and contribute to. We write a piece of it ourselves into it. A perfect example is Santa Claus. Santa Claus is undeniably, unequivocally, absolutely real, Virginia. Yes.
Yes,
there is a
thank
Santa
you.
Claus. I promise. I promise, even if I can't take you to the North Pole and show you the elves, every other piece of that story is real and true. And so how do we define reality? We all do it in our everyday lives in so many ways, like, oh yeah, that girl, she totally likes me. When she doesn't, she hates your guts, or the other way, like, oh my God, why does this person hate me? They don't hate you at all. They're just freaked out because you're acting so uncomfortable. We create that reality bubble around us all the time. And the same is true of these legends. Now, I happen to think that with the really good ones, with the profound ones, there is some nugget of truth behind it. Something weird happened. Something blew someone away who then talked about it. Other people talked about it. Other people came there. Other people experienced it, and they talked about it, and the legend grows.
So what makes the perfect storm of haunted locations, in your opinion, Jeff? Meaning, is it like a quadruple homicide? Is it where, the plantations back in the southeastern United States where there were a lot of slavery abuse cases? What makes the perfect storm for hauntings, in your opinion?
You're both of those are right. Here's the thing. We expect a certain context to these stories, For me, a ghost story is history demanding to be remembered. It's something that happened in the past that demands us to take a second look. Maybe it happened 5 years ago, maybe it happened 200 years ago, maybe 500 years ago. The plantation's a good one. when you go to visit a plantation, even though it may look picturesque and quaint today, part of you knows some really, really horrible stuff happened here. We treated human beings in a really, really bad way. People were beaten, people died here, and you tune into that. I call it empathy. You know, it's being a human being and understanding the suffering of another human being. When you go to a battlefield like Gettysburg, you know, and you realize how many people died or were wounded in the span of just 3 days in July of 1863, it's empathy. You're tuning into that human suffering because you're also a human being. So anywhere that history left a mark, especially when it's tragic history, we expect ghosts to follow. That being said, contextually, you can mess all that up. If you go ahead and throw a Walmart on top of an old battlefield,
oh yeah,
and, you know, in the 5XL underwear section, you know, people seeing an apparition, that's going to mess with us contextually because that's not where we expect to see ghosts, you know? So there could be a Civil War soldier standing there in the aisle, and we would be confused by that.
Well, in the
Where's
South,
the toothpaste?
I'd have to change it from Walmart to Waltergeist.
Waltergeist, the new greeter.
Yeah. I'll shoot your face off. The toothpaste is 6A.
Well, no. What is one of the weirdest experiences that you have heard of? Like you said, if somebody says there was a soldier in the middle of a Walmart, what is one of the weirdest experiences that you've heard of thus far?
Oh God, I love stories of ghosts in the bathroom. I mean, honestly, there's my maturity level right there. So, I mean, any potty humor is funny, but when you combine my two passions, you know, potty humor and ghosts, I mean, I'm all in. And so I've heard stories of ghosts flushing the toilet. I've heard stories of people hearing tinkling, you know, like hitting the water in the middle of the night, and they're looking around saying, wait a minute, I'm alone in the house, and they get up to investigate, and there's no one in the bathroom. I'm like, that's me. I'm going to drink so much beer, I'm going to die from it. My ghost will be the one in the bathroom forevermore, haunting the toilet.
That is, I can imagine somebody said, somebody dropped the kids off at the pool.
I know.
and I live by myself.
It smells evil. When you smell sulfur like that, it's a demon. No, that was me. It's not a demon. Sorry.
You know, I've got a potty humor ghost story for real. I'm not even kidding about this, you guys.
Good.
Jeff, one of my brothers went to visit my mom, and they did not know that my mom's beloved sheepdog had passed away, and the puppy had died within a couple of weeks. So my brother goes to my mom's house. He's going to mow the yard. Mom's not home from work yet, and he goes into the bathroom, and he's sitting down, thank goodness, and he hears the clacking of the sheepdog's paws and toes on the tile floor coming up the hallway, like she always did. And China was the dog's name. China would always push the door open with her nose and then come in and just sit right in front of you when you were sitting there. So he was sitting on the hello, and then he hears the little paws, and the door opens, and the dog walks in and sits in front of him, and then disappears into thin air. And his words exact were, "I shit my pants." So he was already in the he had taken the position, and everything was okay. But then when Mama got there, he freaked out. Yeah. It was
so follow-up question, Eddie, was he constipated before this and the dog because that would be truly amazing.
The dog was helping from the other side.
It really was. It's kind of like, here we go.
A little backed up.
Right. Hey, Jeff.
Grow up, you guys. Seriously.
Right, yeah. Come on, Eddie. Yeah, take us right to the toilet.
What?
I'm just kidding. Jeff, now, do you think it's important as a ghost hunter to know as much about the history of what you're, like a location or I guess for you, a shooting, what do you call it? A film where you, I can't even. Location. There we go.
Yeah.
When you're on location, do you think it's important as a ghost hunter to know the history of where you're going?
I think it's critically important. I understand some people don't want to know anything. They want to go in and see where they get impressions or whatever, and they'll do the research later. That's fine. You know, I just hope they actually do the research and don't skip that part, because to me, to say a place is haunted but to not understand the history is like watching a play on stage with absolutely no setting whatsoever, just all black. and the characters come out and you have no idea what time period is, what anything, because you know nothing about it. It's just an empty stage. So the history is the context for which we place these spirits. And of course, the Holy Grail is to identify what's bumping in the night, you know, to be able to put a name on it, to understand, oh, this person died here. Maybe they're, you know, you can only speculate, because how do we really know? But, you know, this person may have had unfinished business or was murdered here, or the crime's unsolved, whatever it is. You know, we speculate the reason. It's like a mystery story. You know, mysteries always start at the end. You start with a crime, and then you go backwards and you learn who the suspects were and what their motives were. And it's not that different when you're investigating the paranormal.
No, that makes sense to me, because I think it's so important. I'm a big history buff, so I find it fascinating to find out about, especially when it comes to haunted places. In fact, the house I grew up when I was a kid, I used to see an old man. Of course, you know, my mom and dad said, "Oh, I'm sure it was a broom. I'm sure it was a vacuum cleaner or whatever." And then as I grew up, you know, I didn't see him anymore. But then years later, my nephew was in the house, and then my sister-in-law and my nephew in the house by themselves, and he pointed over to a chair and says, "Mama, look at that old man." And she's like, "What old man?" The old man sitting in that chair. Well, she said, "I picked him up and I ran out the door because I remember you talking about when you were a kid." But what it was is, I think it was the man that built the house. He was a banker, and back in the early 1900s, and passed away in the house. And I think he just, you know, he's at home. He's at home.
Well, here's a question for you, Jeff. You know, you brought up that story. When you were younger, you could see it, and when you said nephew was young, he saw it. And you know, so there's this theory that children are more open, and they don't have the cynicism that we have. So, I mean, have you ever had that experience when you're ghost hunting? Have you ever, you know, dealt with people that are younger, able to see things that older people just aren't tuned into?
Great question.
Well, I think with Tony's case, he's just crazy.
And you don't even know me, but that's true.
You know? Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's times where we get called into locations that are homes. And by the way, 99% of paranormal investigators are not qualified to deal with home cases with families, and I am absolutely among that 99%. Because a lot of times it's never just paranormal, but when there's kids involved, I'm a dad, you know, I've got a young daughter. I totally get it. You don't want your kids to be afraid. Being afraid, especially where you live, everything breaks down if you're afraid of your house or apartment, wherever you live. It's not going to go well. So the children do seem to be more sensitive. They have these sightings, and they're also very honest. You know, when you have a kid, they just speak their mind, sometimes at the most inappropriate times, you know, like, you know, about like family members and stuff like that.
Hey, brother,
I know.
You're fat.
I have a 4-year-old.
Exactly.
There's just no like you cannot say anything around her, because she's going to be like, "Oh, well, Mom said that you had BO. What does BO mean?" You know?
You're like, oh.
I didn't even know you were listening. Yeah, so they have no filter, right?
None.
No, and so they're very honest, and we should listen to the kids for sure. But I also think we need to reassure them that they're safe, you know, that Mom and Dad have this covered, and then, you know, work to try to understand what's going on. I remember when my daughter was, about 11 months old, you know, and not really speaking yet, she was sitting up and just started smiling and waving in the corner of our house. Our house is like the least haunted house in New England. You know, it's really pretty new and all that other stuff. And then we smelled this soap that my wife said, you know, that smells like my grandmother, who's passed away, and our daughter's middle name is named after her grandmother. And and our daughter's waving at nothing in the corner. And then the smell went away. Daughter went back to just playing with whatever she was doing. And we thought, wow, it just, all we can say is it just felt like a visit from family to see the baby, you know, and it was really kind of a cool experience. So I think they're sensitive, and I think as we get older, you know, we start to see the world in a way that makes us comfortable. And think about it, as you grow up and you become an adult, you have the friends around you that make you comfortable. You listen to the radio stations, right? You know,
right.
Very
you
predictable.
tune into the music, the political opinions that only you like. You know, and we become so tunnel vision, you know, especially now with the internet, which is you become the ultimate editor-in-chief. You only want to see the sports teams you like, the political opinions you already agree with, you know, the religious affiliation that you like. And so our lives become very comfortable and we tune out everything that makes us uncomfortable. And so I think as kids do that, ghosts are just one of those things that they learn to tune out.
You know, Jeff, the other thing that you brought up was that you smelled that scent, and the sense of smell is the one that's most tied to our memory. Sure. And so I feel like that, in having worked on ghost hunters and a lot of other investigation shows when I was an executive at the Sci-Fi Channel, that's the one thing you can't show smell on TV, you know, like the smellometer.
Well,
so,
maybe Sci-Fi can't, but we figured it out on Travel Channel. I'm just saying.
Well, so tell us.
Look, she rolled her eyes, just so you know.
That's what, you're the past and we're the future. Boom!
Fight. No, it's
called smell-o-vision, son.
Smell-o-vision.
I can feel the sulfur rising.
The sulfur rising.
But you said like a lot of the tools that are being used are not really that adequate. No. So I'm curious because I mean there's a lot that I've seen on Travel Channel, Jeff, that is for entertainment purposes only. But so I'm curious though, which tools you do like.
What, you don't know how the sausage is made? What are you saying?
So in real life...
No. Hey, these tools are interesting. And don't get me wrong, some of them make me scratch my head for sure. Bill Chappell, who works at Digital Dowsing, is making... you may have seen he's modifying the Kinect camera like you see on Xbox, you know, where it maps your body and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I have a version of this thing that I've taken out to locations where, you know, and most of the time I get nothing. But once in a while, what this software does, if you've ever played Xbox Kinect, it maps your body and puts you into the game so you can move around. It can also be used for like custom animation. That's what it's designed to do. Look for human body parts and movements. And it looks in the infrared part of the spectrum as well as the visible light part. It maps you into the software. That's how it's designed. And it works wonderfully a lot of the time. Once in a while, this thing is picking up things that you don't see with the naked eye. And when it maps something, a human figure, you start scratching your head and going, well, what's going on here? And when you can say things like lift your arm, and this figure that you don't see with your naked eye lifts its arm in the software, you start going, okay. Again, I'm not real scientifical, but at the same time, I don't see it do that all that often. And when you're in a renowned haunt and things like that are turning up, it gets really interesting.
And then when the energy starts to run up your neck and your arms and the crown of your head and your hair standing up on your arms and the top of your head, that speaks for itself too, right?
Absolutely. And, you know, there's always a human in the equation. We can't remove living people from this ghost equation at all, and on the shows or anything else. The gear and gadgets, I get it, because, you know, we're trying to get this gear to validate what we're sensing. And that's so hard. Like if you're on TV and you say, I am really nervous and shaking right now, people will just accuse you of acting, even if you're being totally honest.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, and we had that a lot when I was on set with the ghost hunters, and like I saw what was happening with my very own eyes, and then you go on the boards and they're like, Grant is faking it, Jason's faking it, and it's like I experienced that. I know I have no reason to fake it,
exactly.
But you know, it's like that's the only way you can get that across.
Of course. And so if they're shaking and their EMF meter's going off, well, then it's validated for the audience. And that's, you know, and it's too bad because you wish you could take all, you know, million-plus viewers into these locations and say, you go down the hall alone, you know?
You go in the catacombs.
Tell me how happy you're feeling, you know, when you're there in the middle in the dark and you're shaking and going, I'm really scared and I smell something weird and, you know, the hair's standing up on the back of my neck and you go, yeah, well, I don't believe you. You're just acting, you know? And so I get it. That's one of the problems of the medium of television. And that's why I always tell people, hey, if you're interested, if you doubt or have questions, go to these places, experience it for yourself. I mean, that's the ultimate experience, you know, is to actually get into it and become part of the story. It's, you know, you can passively watch on television and that's cool, but get out there, and then suddenly I think you'll get it.
Well, one of the things I think you just proved this point moments ago about how when we become adults, we get sort of in these tunnel vision kind of lifestyles. And I would, just my personal opinion, 95% of the people who are going to the chat rooms and saying this one's faking it and this one's pretending and that sort of thing. Those are the people that are in their tunnel vision thinking places. They're just curious enough to watch it because they're curious, but not enough to really want to expand their minds. And very quickly, if you're just tuning in and you're new to On Air with Tony Sweet and Truth Be Told, or you're veteran listeners, I'm Eddie Connor.
I'm Tony Sweet.
Damona Hoffman.
And we're on the phone right now, Skype with Jeff Belanger. He is our New England Legends series. It debuted on PBS in October of 2013. And I have an interesting question for you, and I'm completely serious about this.
Sure.
When was the time you screamed the most like a girl?
It's funny. This sounds so macho, and I'm totally. It's not my style. But I'm honest to a fault. I've never screamed, but there have been a couple of times where I was just downright scared, and I might have EVP'd myself a little bit.
Hey, you need to make a T-shirt that says that. By the way,
are we gonna have to buy 2 drinks? Is it a 2-drink minimum for the show? This is fabulous.
It is fabulous. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was in Philadelphia at Eastern State Penitentiary.
Oh hell no.
Yeah, and so I've been in creepy prisons and battlefields and dungeons, you name it, all over the world. And I can walk through usually without a flashlight. I let my eyes adjust, and I'm pretty comfortable in the dark. No worries at all. And I was walking through all these cell blocks that go off of this central rotunda. And I'm walking down one of them, and I get to the middle, and suddenly I realize I'm just downright petrified. I have no idea why. I didn't hear anything, feel anything, see anything. I just was normal, and then now really, really scared. But then I'm also intellectually curious about it. So I stop and I went back to the middle. And I'm like, okay. And I went down a different cell block and I was fine. I went back again to the same cell block, got halfway down, and once again, I'm petrified. And all I could think was, well, I'm not going to test this a third time.
Right.
We got to listen to our guts at some point. So I left. I didn't go back in that cell block the rest of the night. I still couldn't figure it out. And I went back to Eastern State probably a year later, and I tried that cell block again, and I didn't get the same result. So, that was a time, though, where I was scared, and for no damn good reason. There was one other time. Here's where I would have screamed like a girl, but I think I would have died if I did. So you ready for this?
Yes.
Talk about the dangers of ghost investigating. We're in a town called Volcano, California, which is just slightly bigger than your studio. Population 90 or something like that. And it was originally going to be the first capital of California.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, up in the north, we're there, and we went out to, we did a small event in town. We were up at the cemetery. This guy walks out drunk, holding a pistol, saying, hey, you guys want to become a ghost tonight?
Are you
That's
serious?
scary.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah, so there you go. It's always the living people. The dead ones don't frighten me so much.
You know what I find fascinating, for real, completely serious here? A lot of transients, homeless people, that sort of thing, if they are kind of, and I mean this in the most politically correct possible way I can say it, if they're slightly off or something's not quite clicking properly in their brain, their mind, I have seen homeless people absolutely channeling spirit, meaning whether you want to call them spirit guides or walk-ins or some kind of a weird energy that's around them. And I've seen that more than once. And you never know. This guy's come stumbling out of the graveyard. He's wielding a gun. He doesn't seem like he was all the way there. And he could have literally been not what do you call it? Possessed. Not possessed, but you know what? Influenced by negative entities.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah,
thanks, Eddie. I'll be dreaming.
And it's a weird thing too. I've seen a lot doing this, especially when you're out in locations really late at night, and sometimes that ghost really is the transient. You're like, there's someone walking down the hallway, man. Yeah, there is. It's the guy who's taking shelter in that abandoned building you're investigating.
Right.
Jeff, I would love to ask you, I was reading Oprah's new book, whatever it is. I just know it's $24.95.
Name dropper.
Yeah,
name dropper.
And she was talking about an interview she did with some survivors, the people who have survivor's guilt. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the few people on a Malaysian plane back in the day that had crashed, burst into flames. And there was only, out of the entire gigantic plane, there was only like 3 or 4 people that survived it. He spoke about getting up out of the floor, his seat came unbolted, And then he said, like in slow motion, this flame, this burst of flame, he said it was literally like hell, came all the way up to the very front of the cabin to first class, and then it slowly retracted back. And when he stood up, the plane broke into 3 pieces. As he was trying to get off the plane, he looked up and looked back at the entire belly of the plane with all of these people that were all engulfed in flames. He said it was the most horrific / beautiful thing he had ever seen. And she said, how was that beautiful? He said, you could see every one of their, what I'll call souls, leaving their bodies simultaneously. He said it was very peaceful. There was no screaming. He said it was these tubes of white light out of every one of them coming straight up. And he said, that's when I knew I was in the presence of something really big that would change my life forever. And then he found his way off of the plane. My question for you is, are they going to build Walmart over that plane crash? I'm joking. No. My question for you is, what is your philosophy on the soul, and what is your philosophy on spirits, ghosts, or souls that may be, quote, trapped between worlds?
You know, it's a tough one because I try to be very rational about all this. I believe we have something inside of us that goes on. I was raised Catholic in the interest of full disclosure, and you can't escape your roots, I guess. But so I do believe something goes on, and I believe that because I've had ghost experiences. I believe that because I've been doing this work for almost 20 years now, and it intrigues me. What comes next? I don't really know for sure. I have a hard time grasping onto the idea that spirits are trapped here, because if a place was haunted all the time, we wouldn't be speculating anymore. We'd have CNN and Fox News and all those guys and would say, here it is, 3 o'clock, there's your ghost, you know?
Yep.
So the fact that they're not there all the time makes me think that this is more of their choosing than it is ours. Or there's always a combination, right? I mean, I've seen situations where a certain chemistry of people will bring out phenomena, and another group comes in right after them, and nothing, it's gone, you know. So I get that there's a gumbo that we're making every time we we go into a haunted location. You know, it's what are the ingredients, what night is it, what day is it, who are the people involved, and so on. So I have a hard time grasping the whole trap thing, but I do think there's something to it, and I think there's some intelligence to it, because you know, there's experiences that seem like a movie, like a residual kind of thing, where it just replays over and over and there's no interaction. But then there's sometimes, and a lot of experiences are with loved ones. You know, grandma died. She came to me 2 weeks later and, you know, saw her, or grandpa, or my, you know, lost a child or something, and people feel they've had contact since, and interactive contact. So to me, that's fascinating, and it makes me think that there is a spirit, it's intelligent, it carries at least some memories with it, and we are allowed, you know, for a certain amount of time anyway, to have that interaction.
So take us back to when you were asked to come in January of this year to speak and do a TEDx conference in New York City. Yeah. Did that scare the bejesus out of you?
You know, honestly, like public speaking is my favorite thing. If I could just make a living doing that, that's all I would do. And so TEDx is like, you know, well, that's the minor leagues, and the full TED, you know, annual conference, that's the pros. I'm still waiting for that call, but when they contacted me, it was someone who had seen me at another lecture somewhere. And honestly, I trained for that like the way a boxer trains for a fight. You know, like I was running through it. You get 9 minutes. You know, I mean, you've got the timer going in front of you at home, and you're practicing again and again. And you know that there's a really wide audience of people that are looking to be inspired, and intellectuals who are watching that. So that was a super cool opportunity for me. You know, you don't get paid for that or anything. You do this because it's just something you're passionate about doing. And so I was really excited by it. It was a school in New York City, so they were like middle school age kids and early high school years.
Wow.
And it was just so cool to go in there. And you know, when you do it, especially when you work so hard at something like that, for those 9 minutes, you're not even in your body, and you have no idea how it went, you know, while you're doing it. And then it's over, and you walk backstage, and you come back into your body, you know, and you go, well, how'd that go? And then I got to have lunch in the cafeteria, and so many kids were coming up after, and they're like, that was so cool, and that was really inspiring. And I'm like, all right, I think I did okay. So it was just a really cool
inspired a generation of ghost hunters.
Yeah, I love that.
Well, you know, honestly, hey, if people want to become a ghost hunter, that's great. But I just want people to ask questions, and I think especially now, I mean, I turned 40 this year, and I realized
that's
that
scary.
totally scary. And I was thinking about it, I love situations where I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm now seeking those out regularly, whatever the situation is, because when you're uncomfortable, when you're out of your comfort zone, you grow. You grow and you learn something. You learn something about yourself, about the world around you. And so that's, and for some people, paranormal investigation is exactly that. You're like, I don't really believe in this stuff, but you know what? I'm going to go give it a shake. I'll go see what happens. And then maybe a little something happens and you go, oh man, everything they told me about how the universe was supposed to work might not be all the, the whole truth. And that's cool. That's really cool. Ask your own questions. Who cares what I think? Get your own answers.
Well, I hear this is going to be a little stretch, and it may not be to you, but how being a ghost hunter, and we talk also about a lot about UFOs. Do you see any connection between UFO and ghost? Is there any hot spots close to where there are haunted places that you've heard of?
Absolutely. Not only that, I'll take further, and there'll be cryptid sightings as well.
So really,
you name it, Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, all within the same area. There's a bunch of hot spots.
Really?
In Massachusetts, there's a place called the Bridgewater Triangle that's got plenty of all of those sightings. There's also a place called October Mountain in western Massachusetts that also has got ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot, and I think that's really fascinating. I started as a ghost guy, but I've since become interested in all kinds of legends, including UFOs, including, cryptids, because I figured, once you start going down the rabbit hole, why stop, right?
Right.
Don't go halfway.
I saw you also co-authored a book on nightmares, and it's the Nightmare Encyclopedia, Your Darkest Dreams Interpreted. So you're really all into, is that like using intuition or symbolism to decode your dreams?
Hold that thought for 1 second. The nightmare thing is the reason I got into UFOs as well.
Oh, really?
Because it all started, there's a phenomenon called old hag syndrome. And
I think I have it.
Insert all your mother-in-law jokes here. I'll leave it
Right.
So old hag syndrome is what it's experienced by a lot of people. You go to sleep at night and you wake up and you're often lying on your back.
Yep.
And you realize you can't move. You're paralyzed,
been
but
there,
you're very
done that.
conscious. And you might see this dark mass coming toward you, and then pressure on your chest. It's a complete panic, and then suddenly it's over. It could last 5 seconds. It could last 20 seconds. For some people, it can last 30 seconds, and so on. But that's about it. Now, people who are reading certain books would call that old hag syndrome, that it was a demonic attack, literally an incubus, a succubus, whatever it was, coming in your prone state and attacking you. If you're reading UFO books or watching those movies, they would say that was an attempted abduction, and that was a gray. That mass was a gray alien coming toward you. And if you're a total skeptic, you'd say that was temporary sleep paralysis combined with a hypnagogic hallucination, right? and here's the kicker. All three are correct, because it's interpreted by the person having the experience. And so I was like, wow, the UFO people call that same exact phenomena like an abduction event. And the ghost and demon people call that a demonic attack. And the skeptics say, no, it's sleep paralysis, which is true. Every 90 minutes you go in a sleep cycle and your body's paralyzed. It's a normal part of our sleep cycle. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of it and your body didn't get the cue yet that, hey, we're awake. This is normal. And a leftover dream, a hypnagogic hallucination, that happens. You open your eyes, you still see your partial dream. And a dream is a hallucination by its very definition. It's a vision in your head that's not actually in front of you. So these things happen. And so that got me thinking, the nightmare guide, to get to that, the old hag played a big part of that. It was kind of the cornerstone that got me thinking along those lines. And there'd been lots of dream interpretation guides done, but none really for nightmares. And I thought it would be kind of fun to look at the scarier stuff. As far as being a dream interpreter, the best in the world is always going to be the person who had the dream, because you have to put it into the context of your life. But these nightmares, what's so powerful about them is we remember them. And, dreams we could forget by breakfast, but the really good nightmares, you can hold on to those for years,
And those become legends.
They become your own legends. I think a dream is a message from yourself to yourself. And so a nightmare is a really important message, and one that you must decode, one that you must fit into the context of your life and say, why am I having this experience? Why am I so afraid right now? Figure that out, and you become a more whole human being.
Well, can you help me figure out one?
Lay it on me.
Okay, here we go, Jeff. I'm laying on your car.
Do it.
Okay,
Are you Cajun?
about 3 weeks ago, I had a very relaxed dream that Ellen DeGeneres and a whole bunch of people similar to her, we were all sitting around talking, and then Ellen pulled
And
me.
when you say similar to her, are we getting into like alternative lifestyle stuff here?
Yeah, that.
Or we're talking talk show hosts.
Yeah.
Or,
Your other friend Oprah.
Yeah. All of the above. If you couldn't
so
tell by
gay talk show hosts on television. Got it.
Oh, hello. You might have just. You really have no idea how close to home you just hit.
Oh, no, I do.
Yeah. Oh, because you can tell by my voice I don't play sports. No, for real. So here's the deal. So yes, to all of the above and a handful of other celebrities, super, super famous, some of them not. And then Ellen pulls me off to the side, and I thought, she's going to kiss me. No, I didn't. She pulls me off to the side, and she says, my people are telling me that we're going to have an earthquake anytime.
Okay.
And I've been feeling an earthquake, like a really big one here.
You've been talking
for a
about
while.
that. You were saying that.
Yes, and but the 2 times I said it before, we had the 5-pointers.
Yeah.
And then the dream stopped, and now they're starting back. So 3 weeks ago was this
Eddie.
dream, and then it was so real that I woke right up. I wasn't in a panic, but I took the things I loved the most off the wall that I did not want smashed, and I put them away and kept them under my bed for 3 weeks. So this past week, literally about 2 days ago, I woke up, bolted straight up out of bed, 5:30 in the morning. It started out as a dream where somebody was shaking me really, like violently, trying to get me to wake up. And then whenever I did wake up, I realized it wasn't someone shaking me, it was an earthquake. And I bolted up in the bed, but then I couldn't move. I could see everything in the room, and it was a full-on 30-second long earthquake. And then I could move. Then I could get out of my body. And then I went through my house and checked everything. I turned on the news. I mean, it was that real, Jeff. So hit me up, big man.
So was it a real earthquake, or was it?
I know you convinced me.
It was a dream. It was a dream.
Okay, I got this.
Okay.
I totally got this.
Okay.
This is easy. Okay, so here's the thing. First, you always have to put this in the context of your life. So I'll ask some leading questions. You don't have to answer them. Just, kind of file them away, because you're the one that's going to have to interpret this. But an earthquake, first of all, keep in mind, our dreams speak to us mainly in imagery, because, if our dreams are really convenient, they just talk to us and say, hey, you've been eating too much lately, you should exercise more, and that's why I'm going to give you this weird thing. But what we're talking about here, when you're talking about an earthquake, this is something really big around you. This is the planet you live on. It's bigger than your house, it's bigger than your town, your community, and so on. It's big. The fact that you bring up Ellen DeGeneres' name, and we're talking about gay TV hosts, it's someone in your community who you trust giving you a specific message. Now, it doesn't mean that we're talking celebrities here, but someone in your circle maybe might have a message for you, and it's going to be groundbreaking, earth-shattering kind of a message, I would think. So you're going to have to search your own circle of friends, family, and acquaintances, and so on. Who is it that you trust so explicitly that's going to give you information that's going to shake up your world like it hasn't been in a good long time, to the point where you want to keep your things safe? And maybe your things represent really parts of yourself, your emotions, and things like that.
Yes.
That's where I would go with it.
Wow, that's flawless.
No, but Jeff, that
I'll shake you
also
if you need
that
to.
plays into intuition, because well, Eddie is a psychic, but how would a regular person know that there's someone that has something earth-shattering to say unless they were tapping into intuition?
And buy the book.
Of course. Honestly, I'll save you the $20. If you want to interpret your dreams, buy a notebook and a pen and keep it by your bed. Yeah. And when you wake up, write down what you remember and put a date on it. Because if you might start to see patterns, and if you're having these nightmares, look at your life. Be like, okay, it's always a Monday that I have this dream, and it's really an uncomfortable dream. And Monday's the day I go back to work, and I hate my boss. And you really start to decode those things. And if you at least understand it, you have a shot at kind of compensating for those issues. So I honestly, what I just did there, it's not magic or anything. It's just, you sometimes need that objective outside person to just help you see what's already in front of you. So I think, like you said, intuition's huge, but just figure out, what does that thing represent? If there's an axe-wielding maniac in a grocery store chasing you, the axe-wielding maniac, what does it represent, and why is it in a grocery store? You're surrounded by food. Are you having issues with food lately? Is it your parents are having heart trouble because they don't eat very well? Those kind of things that are scaring you. You just got to pick it apart in your own life, and you'll find a pattern.
I'm surprised that you did not go into psychology, to be perfectly honest with you, or counseling or coaching, because you have this passion for wanting to help people wake up from the inside out. And I would imagine you're kind of fascinated by the subconscious mind as well.
Yeah, no, honestly, my sister is a psychologist, PhD, the whole bit, and I don't think there was room for two of us in the family. So there's one doctor, and I got my PhD online for like $20. It totally doesn't count.
Well, if you have the same last name, you could just use her credentials.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, Jeff, we have about 5 minutes left, and we're going to run out of time, and you need to come back. We want you back. You're so much fun and so much knowledge of what we do here with Truth Be Told. But we definitely want to talk about New England legends. Now, how did it start? How did you get started with the television show?
Yeah, so I about 4 years ago, a guy named Tony Dunn, who works for PBS here in New England, worked on a project called Things That Go Bump in the Night, Tales of Haunted New England. And I got to work on that with him. I was just one of the interview subjects. He and I hit it off immediately. We realized we were born in the same hospital, about a year apart. And we've kept in touch and said, this should be a series. There should be a show about, because New England's got so many great stories of all kinds, not just ghosts, but you name it, monsters and UFOs. The first documented UFO sighting happened in Massachusetts in 1638, documented by the governor. So
I did not know
great
that.
stuff. Go ahead, fire away.
No, I did not know that at all. I didn't know that Massachusetts had the first.
Me either. Meanwhile, wasn't that like right at the peak of the Puritan era? Is that right or wrong?
Yes, 1620. The Mayflower landed, and it was 18 years later that this sighting happened outside of Boston.
What was the actual? What did the governor say? What did
I
he?
would paraphrase the 2-paragraph entry in his journal. He said, William Everett, a sane and sober man in good standing with his church and community, was on a lighter, which is a small boat, on Muddy River, which is just south of modern-day Boston. And he noticed a glowing swine, something the shape of a pig, in the sky, moving back and forth between Boston and Charlton for over an hour. And in that time period, when it was over, he realized his boat hadn't moved. It should have drifted at least a couple miles down the river during that time, but it had not. I just paraphrased, but that's more or less exactly the beginning, middle, and end of his entry on that UFO sighting in 1638.
That is crazy. I learned
Oh
something
my God!
today.
You know what? You know what you're bringing up, and I know we only have seconds left, but truly, you're bringing up a whole thing about vortex or vortices. Is that whenever a bunch of horse teas? I'm so confused.
Plug in. So Tony and I have kept in touch ever since. And so we started this series last year. We paid for it ourselves. We begged, borrowed, and stole from all of our friends. We called in every favor we could, and we got these 2 episodes together last year, and it aired on one PBS station in New England. And Tony's like, let's submit it for an Emmy. And I'm like, you're kidding? It's just a waste of money. And then we got nominated, and I'm like, I told you, Tony, totally. So we got nominated, and I'll tell you, there's nothing as inspiring as losing an Emmy. So you go there and you don't win, and the whole ride home we were just talking about all the things we would do better. So this year we filmed another episode. It airs now on 2 different stations, two PBS stations this year, and we're so excited. Again, we're funding it because we just believe in it, and we make it back on DVD sales, if that, but it doesn't matter. He works in television, I work in television. We do this thing because we're passionate about it. And if it never takes off, I'm still really proud of it. And it's something that it was stories that we felt had to be told to the point where we laid our own money on the line for it.
Well, Jeff, then please stay in touch with Tony here and with all of this, and let us know what you've got coming up, how his community, his fan base, Damona's fan base, all get together and support you in this, because, I mean, you're coming from such an authentic place, and we appreciate that. That's rare in this industry.
Very rare.
So we want to find a way to support you in support of what you're doing and what you're bringing to the table to expand the consciousness on this planet.
Well, you guys go ahead and just give me your credit card numbers right now.
Eddie, you first.
Okay, mine is BR549.
Jeff Bennett. Well, cool. I appreciate that. I follow Tony on Twitter now, so I'm going to be looking for all of his tweets.
Yeah. Oh, don't
Awesome.
don't worry, you'll get them.
And how can people follow you?
I'm the Jeff Belanger. It sounds totally pompous. I'm so sorry, but Jeff Belanger was taken, so I'm the Jeff Belanger at Twitter.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, I'm just kidding.
And Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook is. I think it's just Jeff Belanger, isn't it?
It's I've got to get one of those vanity URLs. It's just big, long stuff. I don't know. You know, you can go to my website, jeffbelanger.com. It'll link you to everything that I'm doing, the books, the TV projects, everything else. And I'm always happy to hear from people. And what's cool is when you do this for a long time, I'm sure, Damona, you saw this too, you become a magnet for these stories. And the job gets so much easier, because if you need inspiration, you just open your inbox. You're like, hey, did you ever hear the story about this thing? And you're like, I haven't, but awesome.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, we thank you so much, and we really want you to come back, because you've been such a joy, and we've learned so much. So definitely keep in touch. And everybody, please go to his website, jeffbelanger.com. All right, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Nice.
Thanks,
Have a good
Jeff.
night.
All
Have a
right,
good
take
Halloween.
care. Happy Halloween. All right, guys. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Eddie's going to do a little lap dance. And
On me, or just
Sure.
in general?
Yeah.
I need to practice.
Right. So if you guys want to make sure on Halloween next Friday, we are going to have a bunch of people in the house. Eddie, just give us a little sample of what we're going to be discussing.
We are going to have a high priest, a voodooologist, Lou Flores, and I'm now going just strictly off my memory here. We have Billy Spanier, who is an energy healer, and he also helps explain how to do the out-of-body and the astral traveling sort of thing in a practical way, and then he talks about how he redirects the energy in the body. We also have Laura Lovecraft. She's going to be here. She is what they call a Wiccan of white magic and rituals, and she really specializes around LERV and relationships.
That's my
And then we
category.
also have Benjamin Sculia. He's going to be here talking about pet communication as well as mediumship things and do an impromptu reading. And then we have a special little segment that we had forgotten about that we're going to drop in, and we just want to see how that unfolds.
Which is always fun.
It is fun. Spontaneous. We have to schedule our spontaneity on this show, bitches.
And if you guys love paranormal, you love ghosts, and you love haunted places, stick around. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we have another author. Yes, Richard Southall. And he has a book called The Haunted Route 66. And we're going to talk about what is some of the most haunted places along the Route 66, which is, I think, starts in Chicago and goes all the way here to Santa Monica Boulevard, down to Santa Monica Beach. And I know he has a book about ghost hunting. We didn't really talk much about with Jeff, but how to become a ghost hunter.
That's very intriguing.
Yep.
And we found out he's a Freemason, so we're going to tease a little bit.
Yes, we're going to tease a little bit of Freemason. So, all right, take a break. Don't go anywhere. Get you a drink. Come right back.